Hi everyone, good evening. Just trying to sort out camera. So good evening and welcome to our fourth demo based on buttercream. We are going to talk about the leaf nozzle, and not just about the leaf nozzle. We'll go through all the nozzles we've used so far, and I think I'm mistaken, I think this is just the third demo, but anyway, still based on buttercream. So I'm going to start preparing some buttercream. I did the preparation of the buttercream on the first demo, but just as a quick recap, I'm going to do it again, but on a much smaller quantity, so that it can give you an idea about how to prepare it when you only need a little bit to prepare, to pipe like, I don't know, 10-15 flowers, which typically are enough for covering a medium-sized cake. So let's have a quick look at the equipment. Just trying to mute my phone as well. Good. As previously mentioned, if you've got any comments, you can add them. Hopefully I'll be able to see them and answer while I'm demonstrating. But if not, we'll have the question and answer session right at the end, when we'll get through all the bits which are a bit unclear. In case that you cannot hear me or see me, please do let me know. Yeah, getting to the setup. So what I've got here, plenty of bits and pieces which we will use throughout the evening. I'm going to start with my icing sugar. I've got 200 grams of icing sugar, which was already sifted. I mentioned about my preference on sifting the icing sugar to purely keep the lumps of sugar away from my buttercream. And then I've got 100 grams of butter. I'm using unsalted butter. This is my preference, but if you like the taste of salt, you can also use salted butter. But you have to remember that taste of the salt will actually be quite strong if you use salted butter. So I will recommend unsalted if you can get it. And I will also recommend butter with a high percentage of fat, typically about 80 to 82%. So, for a bit of flavoring, you can add some vanilla. If you're looking to get a clear finishing, more like a light color on your buttercream, then try and use a clear vanilla essence. Mine is one with seeds, but it doesn't matter because at this point I'm planning to use this buttercream just for demonstrations, and also I'm going to probably color it with green, so it will make no difference. So I'm going to put the vanilla over my icing sugar. Then I will add the butter. Now butter has been kept at the room temperature for a few good hours, so it's quite soft. And I've mentioned previously, when I use buttercream for piping, the proportion goes to 1 to 2, 1 part butter, 2 parts sugar. And if you feel that that's a bit too sweet, you can slightly reduce the amount of sugar. But I wouldn't recommend it to drop it below 1.5 because it will be too soft. So the minimum quantity of icing sugar for 100 grams of butter would be 150. Ideally, it would be 200 grams of icing sugar. But you can increase to 250 if, say, for example, it's very hot and you want more stability on your cream. Then you get a piece of cling film or a damp cloth, which you don't really need very much, as you will have to drill a hole through. you get one of your whisks. I'm only going to do a very small amount, so it's pointless to mess the stand mixer. I'm going to pop a hole into my cling film, but just one of the attachments, and then get my hand mixer. Okay. Then make sure you keep the jug quite secure, and you start beating. Okay, once you feel that the butter started to catch all the dust and the icing sugar, then you can remove the cling film or the damp cloth, and then you can put the second whisk onto the second attachment and carry on beating. Now you might wonder, oh, what about the air bubbles? Because typically we intend to say we beat the buttercream with a very low speed because we don't want too many air bubbles into our cream. Now you can remove the air bubbles by just paddling the cream a little, but it will just save time and hassle because you don't have to do too much cleaning, and also using the method of covering, it doesn't create too much dust on the surface. So you can carry on beating. And then gently pull out the attachment so that you can get rid of the majority of the cream. And you are ready to go. Now we said about the air bubbles, the way how we can remove them very easy is, say for example, I said about coloring this cream with some green. So I'm going to transfer a little bit of this cream in here. Now talking about quantities, depend on the size of the flowers or decorations you want to make, then you might need more or less buttercream for decorating. So I typically say, and I'm going to show you later how let's try and have you right in front of me. So the size of the flowers, I will show you a few flowers while we will be piping. Some of them, they only need about 10-15 grams of buttercream. Some of them might need a bit more, like 30-40 grams, 50 grams if you pipe a large rose on top of a cupcake. So if you only have to pipe like 6 cupcakes, it's pointless to prepare like 1 kilogram of buttercream, because then you will have to keep that in the fridge. If it gets in the fridge, it gets too firm, and then you have to take it out and leave it at the room temperature for hours before preparing. So it's a bit of a hassle. I'm not saying that you will have to dispose that leftover, but it's just the hassle of, you know, storing, labeling to make sure that you know when you prepare it and so on. If you're working small batches, then it's just easier, because then you have to work with the whole amount of cream you've prepared and you've got nothing left for further use. So you can practically decide how much buttercream you want to prepare depending on the number of flowers you are planning to buy. Okay. So in my case, with this amount of buttercream based on 100 grams of butter and 200 grams of icing sugar, I've got 300 grams, which will be more than I need for finishing a decent sized cake. And I'm referring to like 1.5 kilograms or so on, like a 6-inch cake. So, or it would be fine for up to about 12 cupcakes. Okay, because I can just grab a small part of the cream, color the cream in pink, do a little bit of, I don't know, red, a little bit of green. You don't need huge amounts, so always be careful about that. I'm going to move to the top camera so that you can see me coloring the cream. Okay, so I've got a little bit of that cream. You can see the air bubbles, but they are not huge in size, and typically they will just be removed while piping. I'm going to get some of my green, and I've got here some pea green from Peony, and a little spatula. I'm going to grab quite a large amount maybe even more. Put that on one side without mixing the color yet. And I'm going to get some old gold, just to show it some variation. And I will just grab this bit and place it on one side. So I can literally prepare 2 or 3 colors in the same bowl, because we all know that washing the dishes is not quite a pleasant job to do. Not because we don't like to wash the dishes, it's just time consuming, and we want to save the time for doing different other activities, not just doing the washing up. Okay, so just trying to put something to protect the surface that it doesn't get too greasy. Now, if you've got those kind of spatulas, you actually might be able to just smudge and incorporate the color on here without using your silicone palette. You see, that's a lovely color shade, and it's great when, for example, you want to pipe some flowers and you want to turn them into gold. You will use the old gold to color the buttercream, and then you can just spray with a little bit of gold spray, and they will look really, really nice. Okay, but that's for my flowers. So I'm going to leave the stick on one side and get to my green. Keep some green, very, very dark green on one side, and then smudge a little bit of whatever I've got left here, trying to lighten the green a little bit more. So whenever you pipe leaves, you don't have to have a plain block color. You have to get like shades of color. So I don't have to mix and mix and mix, because those shades will actually look quite nice on my funnel project. And then I'm going to get a touch of this green with a bit of uncolored cream and some of my brown color, old gold color. The final result will be kind of a browny color, kind of a light mix in between my green and my old gold. But when I fill my bag, I can put a touch of each of those shades and make the leaves to look more interesting. Now I'm going to start with a petal nozzle. Funny enough, we said petal nozzle is obviously not a leaf nozzle, but it can be used as a leaf nozzle. Just trying to see if you can see the petal nozzle. If you've watched the previous demos when I talk about the petal nozzle, I've explained that one side, which is quite wide, is the base, and the narrow end is creates the tip of the petal. This is a straight petal nozzle because it doesn't have a curve. So I'm going to put some of my cream in here. Just going to pick a little bit of each of those shades. Now next to my very thin end, I'll put a little bit more of this cream. So I will get variegated type of leaf when I will pipe. Again, as typical, I will squeeze to get my cream into the nozzle, then I will fold the top. Now I don't think I've used paper bags before. Piping with paper bags is a little bit different because I'm using my fingers to squeeze, so my thumb will create the right pressure, comparing with the plastic bags, which I'm going to use after. What I want to do is just quickly make few leaves using this petal nozzle before starting actually with the star of the evening, which is the leaf nozzle. I'm going to pipe leaves with a petal nozzle. So I will secure a square of paper onto my piping nail. Then I will start keeping the wide end of my piping tube onto the base. I will start squeezing and just jiggling towards the tip of the leaf, and then I will come back on the opposite direction. Okay, I think I have to change the angle of the camera so that you can see better what happens. Okay, if I get a bit closer to you, just picking my square of paper, and I will come here and I will start again. Yeah, so with a bit of a zigzag motion. Yeah, I'm doing one part and then coming from the top with a lighter pressure, increasing the pressure as I go along. I will put the second part. I think I did a mistake attaching the square with green, because you can hardly see what happens in here. Let me just change it to some white and put another square and do another one. Okay, and let's see if I can show you now. My piping tube is a bit confusing here. If you can see, the piping tube has got the wide end at the base and the narrow end at the top. Okay, so again, starting from the base, start squeezing and go up, down, bit of a wavy motion up to the top. Yeah, so they look similar with the frills, but they are somehow offside. And then you come from the top with a lighter pressure as you want a pointed leaf, and then you increase the pressure as you go along to create the final shape. Good. So those leaves can definitely go into the freezer and they can firm up. But while I'm at this point of creating some leaves on squares of paper, I've got another bag filled with green, and it's got a plain tube. I'm going to replace this with a leaf petal. Just weird. You cannot see properly on. Let's try and get something like a white background. Okay, that's my leaf nozzle. You see, it looks like the beak of a bird. So if you look on one side, it's got a V shape. If we take the Wilton, that's even more pronounced, so it's easier to see. So we've got the 362 from Wilton, which has got a V shape. So you can pipe with this nozzle by keeping it this way with the V shape visible to you, or you can pipe with the nozzle position as the beak of the bird or the crocodile mouth, with the V shape not visible, being on one side. Okay. The previous nozzle which I've showed you is a Peony, a leaf nozzle. It's slightly smaller than the one from Wilton, and it's got a slightly different shape. Now, my preferred one is typically the Wilton, but I'm going to use Peony. From the Peony range, I love the number 50, which is really, really tiny. I will show you how that looks like. But 51, 52 are not really my favorite, or 53. 54, I do use it, but not for making leaves. It's more for making sort of, I don't know, flowers. Okay. So with the V shape being on one side, not being visible from the top, you can keep it 45 degrees towards your piping surface. You can squeeze with a good pressure, then you can lower the pressure and pull away, so you get like a little leaf. In the same time, you can do the same movement, but press with a harder pressure. Keep that pressure there till you decide for the right length. You lower the pressure and you pull. Okay, you can get a longer leaf. The way how you pipe with your nozzle, you can change the angle, and you can get upright leaves or flat leaves, but in our case it's really not important because they are all piped on squares of paper and then they would be transferred onto the cake. I would typically not pipe those on squares. I would pipe them right onto the cake, but I've done it in front of the camera just for you to see what to expect. Okay, you can also make a much wider leaf by increasing the pressure. So you see, as I'm increasing the pressure, the leaf turns up much, much wider in size using the same size nozzle. Okay, so I'm going to transfer those little leaves which we've been created in the fridge, and I'm going to take out from the fridge some material which I've already prepared for the evening, some cupcakes and a cake, just to try and play with the leaf nozzles and see what sort of result we can get. So just bear with me one sec. So we've got a few bits in here. So we'll start with a cake card. That's just a cake card covered with buttercream, a thin layer of buttercream. That will help me to practice. The point is, when you start practicing, if you use just a cake card, then the piping nozzles intend to slide, and it's so annoying. While if you use already covered with buttercream cake card, they've got practically the same type of surface which you will typically use when you will decorate a cake. Okay. So just probably going to try to keep it in my hand so closer to the camera. I've got a damp cloth just toward the end of the tube to make sure that I know exactly what position is my tube used at. I've got the V shape now visible, okay, and I will consider that I'm piping on the cake and the cake is in front of me, like upright. Okay, so from the base I'm going to squeeze and start dragging few stems. Okay, again, touching the surface, I will start squeezing and I will gently move my hand into kind of a wavy motion. It's quite typically when people are starting to pipe stems and lines and flowers on the cake, they intend to just pipe straight lines. Now you don't see very often those kind of stems on flowers. They typically arch, so they are curved, they just don't look stiff. Okay, so just it's something very easy to do because again, it doesn't actually put pressure on your hand. You don't have to control the pressure very much, as if you go wrong, then you can very easily correct, where if you try to do a straight line, it's more difficult. So, but you start from the base, you don't start from the top going down, because as you pipe, you have to lower the pressure. Coming from the top of the cake towards the base is a bit inconvenient. So it works easier if you start from the base of the cake, thinking that that's the side of my cake. You start squeezing, make sure you keep your nozzle in contact with your board, and you start piping shorter or longer leaves or stems or whatever. You can carry on with the nozzle being kept in the same position with the V shape up towards you, and pipe some leaves as well. This time applying kind of a medium pressure, but just a burst, and then you stop. So you squeeze, stop squeezing, and pull. Or you can turn your nozzle into the initial position which we've been discussing about, with the V shape on one side or the other without being visible from the top. And you can add the other type of leaves which we created just a little bit earlier. Okay, again, touching here. So you keep adding. Now the way how you move your hand, it really depends on what kind of design you've got in your cake. It can be 45 degrees in here, or if you want to put the leaves upright, then you might go for 90 degrees. There isn't a particular rule when it comes to leaves, because it really depends where you want to place the leaf. Now, just to quickly finish this board, I've got handy another bag with some yellow, in fact that's yellow. Let's use some pink, not yellow, because the base is cream, so it's hard to see. I've got some pink here with a Petal Nozzle, the 1004 from Wilton. Okay, if you remember what we did last time with a rose bud, so I'm going to pipe one petal, and then with the wide end of my nozzle tucked at the base of the petal, I'm going to squeeze. Now while I'm squeezing, my buttercream will start creating a little curl on the top, and that will make it to look like a rosebud. And we'll do another one petal, then I will have to lift my nozzle, start creating that curved petal, and I will alternate with 2 more petals, one on one side, one on the other, to enlarge the size of my rose. And do another one in here, and another one in here, and even larger. Okay, so I've got a few little flowers. You notice how quick everything goes once you know what to do. And then I'm going to get my leaf nozzle to make the calyx. Now, keeping the nozzle, I will have to start piping the petals of the calyx from underneath the base of the flower. But the V shape is offside, so I cannot see it looking at the nozzle. Okay, so I'm going to touch the board, start squeezing, and elongate the petals. Yeah, and I don't have to make 5 petals. It will be enough if I make like about 2, because they will be visible. The rest I will consider they are behind the flower. Same in here. I might try to put 3, 1 on one side, 1 on the other, and 1 in the center. Okay, let me change the camera, then you might be able to see better on this one. Okay, if I go in here, yep, so just cleaning the end of the nozzle so that you can see what it's all about. Yeah, so you can see how I'm keeping the nozzle, and just squeezing to release 1 leaf. And then obviously I have to either move my hand or turn the board to do the second. And then going from the top, again, just cleaning the nozzle to make sure that you see how the nozzle is positioned. Just put the 3rd. And again on the other one, 1, 2. This is a larger rose. I might be able to fit 4, but it's not important how many, because obviously I would presume that the rest are behind the flower. Good. Now, because we've kind of tried to do a little bit of variation on the type of nozzles, let's see if I use star nozzle. It's very difficult to say if 54 from PME is a star nozzle or a leaf nozzle, because if you look at the nozzle now, it's kind of a mix. But the prongs of the star are not all uniform. They are uniform in one side, they all have the same length, but you've got a very deep one here, which makes it a bit different than a star nozzle. Quite similar with a leaf nozzle, but I would say it's somehow in between. Well, let's see what I couldn't see my coupler. And that's a really nice one to use for creating some decorations. So if I squeeze the cream a little, I can show you. So one of the extensions is much bigger in size than the rest. Okay, because you've got this part coming out with more cream than the rest due to the size of the prongs. So if I go onto my board and pick that part which gives a much bigger finishing, I would try just to create some little shells. But those will not look like shells, they will look like little flowers, because the petals are so big in size, like aerated. Again, going in here, yeah, create one little petal and one in here. In the same way, going back to my leaf nozzle, I can attach few leaves, and I can do it by using now the nozzle with the V shape towards me. So again, just adding 2 little petals one on one side, one on the other, just to mimic the calyx. Okay. Then using another type of nozzle, again a petal nozzle, but the one which looks a bit funny is like a smile. It's called 55 on the Peony or Gem range. Just trying to see where that is. Where are you? It suddenly disappeared from my box. You see, if you've got too many, to start hiding. That's weird. I cannot see that nozzle, and I'm so sure I've put it on the side for you. Just bear with me one sec. Oh, they might have another one. Oh yeah, I do have another one here. Okay, so that's the smiley one, which typically is used for piping petals like daisies. I'm going to use it slightly different. And I'm going to use this yellow, which is quite bright, but we'll squeeze a little bit to make sure it comes out nicely from my piping bag for the coupler. And with this one, I will attach a few more petals. So literally with that smiley nozzle, oh, I think I had some purple on this, yeah. Anyway, it looks a bit purpley. I'm going to start piping some semi-circles using this petal nozzle. I'm not sure if you can see properly as it's yellow. You will see it on the black cake in a sec. And you can create more delicate flowers. Let's go on to the black cake because it is going to look much better onto this cake. Okay, so I'm using now the 55, which is a petal nozzle, and I will literally just touch the surface and squeeze some of this cream. This nozzle is just a cannot say it's a pain, it's just a nightmare, as if it catches a little blob of sugar and tends to block. Okay. Again, so it's more like doing some C shapes. So all you have to do is to turn the nozzle and create those curved petals. The overall look here will be quite cute. Okay, very simple, so simple that you cannot believe it. Okay, good. So going now to our leaf nozzle, the one which I've used previously was the Peony one. So I'm going to use now the leaf nozzle from Wilton, which is slightly larger in size. And as I started with yellow, I'm going to carry on with yellow on this cake. And I will do a border based on using a leaf nozzle. And you can see how that looks like. But I'm going to do it with yellow, so the contrast it will look much better than using a darker color. So that's my leaf nozzle. Okay, the one with a V shape, and I'm going to keep the V, the nozzle, so that the V is not visible in front of me, is on one side. And I'm just going to start creating some leaves. Now you can either tack the next leaf underneath, make like a chain of leaves, or you can come with the leaf over, which I think is a bit easier because you don't ruin what you've just piped. And you can also squeeze and extend and get a very kind of slim pointed end on your petals or leaves, or how you want to call them. Before going any further, I'm actually going to use my green nozzle and just show you. So what I said initially about piping on the side of the cake starting from the base. So this time I'm using the nozzle so that the V shape is towards me. And I'm going to start from the base of the cake, okay? And I'm going to attach some stems, okay? They will have to be quite tightly attached to the cake. Okay, I wouldn't twist my hand normally, but it's just for you to see what I'm doing, because you have to always find a comfortable position when you pipe and you have the cake in front of you, not offside like I have it now. And then you can also just pipe some more leaves in here, similar with what we did on our practice board. And then going back to the petal nozzle, just as an example, we'll attach a little flower, a little bud. That's literally just putting in practice what we've done on the board. Okay, and you can carry on adding more flowers if you want to. Say for example, if you want to add some little decorations, like a bunch of small flowers based on a number 2 nozzle, which is a plain or writing tube, all you have to do is just to pipe a few dots. Now this shows green because it was attached to the green bag, but at one point I will get yellow coming through, so I'm just squeezing, trying to get the yellow. Come on. Yep, finally here. And all I have to do is just to pop a few dots, and they will mimic a cute flower. Or I can start building more like a cone shape out of a few dots, and I have to lower the pressure as I go along and then just make it thinner and thinner, so that creates another effect like a very pretty piped flower. So you can be super creative with those nozzles. Again, I can squeeze to make more like teardrop shapes, like dots which have got like an extended tail, and they can also create a little flower for me. Okay, more decorations to enjoy. A small kind of carnation, because I've got here a frilly effect. Typically I will use a much smaller nozzle, just adding up petals and then removing the excess. And don't forget about the 54, which we've used to make those nice pointed red flowers. Okay, so just a very plain design based on very few nozzles, which you can create by, as I said, using some of those nozzles, the leaf nozzle, to create the border, to create the stems and leaves, and some of the petal nozzles or star nozzles, the writing tubes, to put a little bit more decorations on the cake. Now, I'm pretty sure that you know about this leaf type of nozzle is super popular when it comes to sunflowers, and that's the main type of flower which we create with those type of nozzles. So I'm going to swap now to my yellow. It's typically yellow and a bit of orange, but I'm not stressing too much now on the coloring, because the color can on its own take a few good hours talking and developing the right shades. So I'm just going to squeeze to make sure I've got yellow coming through. Now there are two ways to do it. If you do it on the cupcake or on a square, you can do it right on the cake. You can start piping the center and then pipe the petals, or you can pipe the outer petals and then go to the center, which I'm going to do. And for the center, I'm going to use a little bit of chocolate ganache, which I put in a little bag with a star tip. So we'll start with this 352, sorry, it's 36, let me double check. I think it's 352. 362 is the large one. It makes sense because the figures are different, much larger, much bigger figure. So with the V shape on one side, you see that it's offside, you start piping petals. Now, unless you want your cupcake to be fully covered in buttercream, I don't eat buttercream almost at all. I'm not a huge fan of it. Not because it doesn't taste nice, it does, but it's too greasy, too sweet for me, so I intend to eat more like cream, fresh cream, whipped cream, than buttercream. And you can obviously pipe all those flowers with a different type of cream, but we've been kind of stressing on buttercream here. But I was about to say, if you don't want this flower to be so covered with cream, then you only have to leave a thin layer in the center. So always make sure that you've got a layer of buttercream on the cupcake so that your petals will get connected. But you don't have to start piping your petals from the center of the cupcake, just on the very edge, because then you save and you don't use so much buttercream. It's not about, you know, keeping the budget down. It's mainly not to make the cupcake so full with buttercream. And then on the second layer, you kind of change the angle a little, so you increase the angle from 45 to about 65, and then you start piping the second layer, again squeezing to get a larger amount of cream, and then lowering the pressure, pulling to get the pick of the petal. Okay. If any of the petals turn up longer than you want, you can very easily just remove the excess, so don't be afraid to touch it. If it's too tricky to do it, place the cupcake in the freezer for 5 minutes. Scrape and redo, or remove the part which you don't like. Okay, but don't do it when it's all fresh, because then it will be very difficult to correct. Okay, and then I will have to do the center. I'm just looking to see where my ganache is, and I'm using the star tube, which I think is number 14 from Wilton, so it's just a typical star tube. And I'm going to do the center. Oops, it just seems that my ganache got firm. I've got a dark chocolate ganache, and that gets firm in no time. So I have to squeeze very, very firm, a bit too firm, and unfortunately I cannot place it in the microwave because I've got the metal tube. So let's try and do it somehow differently. Let's change the angle of the camera. Oh, where am I? So at least you can join me while I'm warming up the ganache. So I'm going to take the star nozzle away, because if I don't do it, then I will have to warm up the ganache anyway. I don't have another soft ganache, And this dark ganache, it gets firm in no time. I did not realize it's going to firm up so quick. So I'm going to place this in the microwave, but that's just behind the scenes. Things like this do happen when you decorate, and at least you know what you should do. So I'm going to leave it for about 3-4 seconds. It should turn up soft enough. It's far too soft than I want it. And I'm going to quickly make another paper bag. When you work with ganache, preferably would be to use a milk chocolate ganache, because that doesn't firm up so quick. It doesn't have such a high percentage of fat. Mine is not just dark chocolate ganache. It was also made in a vegan option. And when you do it in a vegan option, you also don't have so much liquid. Oh, now it's super soft, but it's fine. Okay, so I'm just going to go into here. You will see what I'm talking about. Well, before it was very difficult to squeeze it. Now I can just literally create a glaze with this ganache. Ridiculous, but anyway. It would just help me to create this little center. But you got the point. The center typically is piped with a star tip. But what I can do is to get some peaks as the ganache start cooling. So I can use the palette knife and literally just create the peaks. I have to wait till it cools down a little. But it's just the effect, so it doesn't really matter if it worked or it did not work. That's a completely different story. It's just me being silly and not realizing that the ganache will get firm by the time I'm going to use it. Good. So for just for a bit of variation, I'm also going to use another cupcake and carry on with this with a different type of flour. Okay, I will use the leaf nozzle to create a base, and not just the leaf nozzle. I'm going to start with the grass nozzle as a variation, as we said about using different nozzles as well. See, having too many nozzles to deal with, I'm pretty sure I had my grass, grass nozzle. Okay, again, this always have to be checked to make sure that it's not covered with sugar or something else, because it's got such a small holes, they get blocked continuously. So this brass nozzle will be used to put a little bit of texture on my cupcake. So I'm going to start squeezing fluffy bits. Now you can play with the pressure. Typically it's a strong pressure to start with, and you lower the pressure as you go along so that you get the peak of the grass. If you want to get it quite regular, but if not, grass typically is not looking perfect, so you don't have to get the same length on every pile of grass. Yeah. That's how typically the grass is. But if you want to be quite uniform in piping, then when you pipe, you start applying the pressure, then you should be careful and maintain the same pressure throughout when you pipe. Now, to be honest, you can just leave the cupcake as it is, and I think I'm going to leave it this way. And get to some of my leaves and flowers which I put in the fridge. And I've said about how heavy those flowers can be like. You see how easy they can be maneuvered because they are frozen. This is about 10 grams and this is about 15 grams. So, for example, if you want to get maybe this leaf, place it underneath, and then place the flower. That's very easy. Oops. Put a little bit of green. Even that green is easier to remove because the flower is cold. You can even get a brush and clean it. So whenever you make a mistake, put the buttercream in the freezer and wait till it chills out so that you can maneuver. And then you can, as I said, pipe petals, leaves, and you can make them far in advance. Just attach them on the cake when you need them. But you have to be sure that they don't get ruined into your freezer. So either choose something to kind of protect, like a box with a lid, where you put your squares with your petals or leaves or flowers, and then they will be safe for even months. But will definitely help you on a very short kind of time frame. When you are too stressed in finishing some orders, you can definitely do things far in advance. Now, if I get to the point of piping a rose straight on the cupcake, I'm just going to put some of my green. I don't have to pipe. I only want to put a little bit of green. That green might not be seen anyway. That's a way to reconnect the cases with your cupcake. If they start peeling off on the side, you can very easy, just put a little bit of buttercream and reshape. They sometimes intend to come away as you maneuver them, you store them randomly, and so on. Okay, I'm going to use the same 104. But what I did with this 104, because it was a bit too wide, if you look at the original one, 104 is quite a wide nozzle. Can you see? It's a super wide nozzle. So what I did was to get a plier. And with the plier, I've gently, so you have to do it gently, yeah? I've started to squeeze so that the end of the nozzle is not so wide. And that was the reason why my flower turned up much, much slimmer. And somehow with the tip of the petal quite rough. Okay, so I'm going to add a kind of a petal in the center, and then I will start covering that petal with 3 more petals to create a center. Okay, I've explained last time in the demo before the last one that if you want to get more like a closed rose, you should keep the nozzle towards the center. If you want the flower more open, then you should increase the angle or start piping the opposite direction than you normally do. So again, if you want your cupcake not to get with the case loose, then leave it on the table, maybe use a turning table and keep rotating gently so that the case doesn't come off. Okay, and it also gives you a little bit more control. So you start squeezing and you alternate those petals. I will show you in a sec, but they look much, much thinner than they would typically look if you use a normal nozzle without thinning the edge. You've heard about those Korean decorators, and they've got their own nozzles and so on. That's literally what they did. They started, squashing and twisting the nozzles in order to get the right result. So don't be afraid to try if you want to get a certain shape. Just pipe with the nozzle and see what shape you get, and then regardless Your nozzles are not expensive, so if you want to just ruin some to get a shape which you really want to get, then just go for it. Now I've done the center quite tight, and now I want to enlarge the rows. So I will start piping on the opposite direction, changing the angle and also increasing the size of the petals. Okay, and I will actually cover the whole cupcake. So I did say the green is sometimes not visible, but you can definitely add a few more leaves if you want to, just for the sake of adding leaves and using the leaf nozzle. So I think we kind of covered quite a lot, doing some leaf nozzle work and also stressing on what you can do mixing those nozzles and creating either leaves with petal nozzles or petals with leaf nozzles, using plain or star tips and so on. Now my ganache started to get quite firm, so if I want to get the picks, I can just tap with my palette knife and put a bit of texture in the center. You can sprinkle some draggies if you want, or some crumbs of cake. You can be creative. But if not, just some little fluffy bits will just create the texture. Just because, as I said, I made a mistake of not realizing that my ganache will turn up super stiff. Okay, so I'm going to change the camera now to the front one, if I remember which one is, as my memory is not always great. And we'll start the question and answer session. Hopefully it will work, as last week we had a bit of a glitch, we had a bit of a problem with our demo. But I'm not sure if I can see in here if there are any questions. Sarah, hi Sarah. What nozzle number did you say the leaf nozzle is? The Wilton. The Wilton, so I've used the 352, but there is also a 362, which I've missed to show you. Is it not silly? It is. So I'm going to put back just for a minute and show you how you use this large one. And I'm just going to make a quick lily. Lily. Let's do a poinsettia. Lily is similar. Lily has 6 petals, but poinsettia has got more than 6. So that's the reason why I said we'll do poinsettia. So it gives you an idea about how to use it. So it's quite a large size nozzle, but literally is the older brother of 352. So I've got 352, 362. I love the both nozzles. I think they've got a really nice shape. But I also love the Peony ones, 50, which is so tiny you cannot even see it in the camera. It creates very delicate, intricate petals. It's perfect for royal icing, but you can use it for buttercream as well. But on the Peony range, you've got 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, which I've showed you. So a variety of nozzles. Typically 53 is a large one, which quite often we use it on the Peony royal icing course to pipe the lilies. But I'm going to quickly just go to this large 362, and I'm going to actually do it right on the cupcake. And I'm actually do the both lily and the poinsettia, as if I do it on the cupcake it works super quick, as I still got cupcakes in here. I will do the both with just a natural buttercream color, no coloring involved this time, because as you know, you have to have either a large coupler or put the nozzle straight in the bag to pipe. Okay. What I want to show you before starting to pipe, this is actually the nail which you use to pipe those flowers if you want to pipe them separately. Okay, so you get a square of paper, or typically aluminium foil or something else, and then you shape, and then you pipe your flower, and then you put it in the freezer, and then you froze that like you do all the other flowers, and then peel off the paper, and then you can use it. But I'm going to use my cupcakes, so there is no need for this. I'm going to get one of my cupcakes. Okay. Then again, creating a nice good pressure. So this is my 362, much bigger than the 352. Now to start piping my lily, what I'm going to do, I will put like a rim of cream just to create that kind of support for my petals. Because you know when I said about this piping nail, the reason why we use this is because we can pop the petals inside. Now in here I don't have that depth, so I need to create it by just piping a dam of buttercream. And then from this point I can start piping my petals. Lily has 6 petals, so I'm going to start with 3 large petals. So I'm going to squeeze and pipe the first petal. So nice good pressure. Then lower the pressure and pull to get the pick of the petal. And another one. Okay, then I've got 3 petals, and in between you come with 3 more. This time they are slightly shorter. Okay, and the last one to fit in here. And then you should put a center. It's quite often when we use maybe like a thin stick of chocolate inside, or just something to mimic your stamens, as you typically have got a pistil in the center, and then you've got 6 stamens. Okay, just mimicking because I don't have those chocolate sticks. You can make the stamens a bit longer if you want to. Make them green, you can make them whatever. Yeah, just to play with this. Then you've got the poinsettia, and I'm not going to do that dam of buttercream because it might run out of. It takes a lot of buttercream when you make those flowers. So I'm going to pretend that I've got, you know, a support for my petals. Now on the poinsettia, you typically have got red and green involved, not white, but some of them are probably white or orange. So I'm going just to pretend that I've got some red buttercream in here, and I will start by just piping 4 petals, same like I did with my lily. I will literally just do them into a cross shape. Okay, and then in between 4 more. That's your Christmas flower, and it's super popular when on the Christmas time. Then you can come with a few more shorter in the center, and then if you want to, you can swap for either a star or a plain nozzle, just to put some little beads or blobs in the center. Okay, so that's going to be your poinsettia. So yeah, so thank you very much, Sarah, for reminding me about. So the one I used initially, the small one, was 352. The large one I've used now is 362. Same shape but different size. Diana, looks great. Thank you, Diana. Especially on the black. Yeah, absolutely. The contrast, it always shows better in the camera. I'm not sure if there are any other comments, if anyone wants to ask more questions. No, we still got like 5 minutes. Let's see if I can see more comments on here, but I don't think that there are. Here, I don't think there are any more comments. So, ladies, I hope you've enjoyed the demo. Now, next week, I'm going to run a demo, but it will not be hosted by us. It will be hosted by British Sugarcraft Guild Meet Hans. I've already uploaded the details in case that you want to join. Unfortunately, it's not going to be a free demo. It's going to be paid, but don't ask me how much it will cost because I've got no idea. I'm not involved. I'm just a guest. I'm going to demonstrate, but I don't think that they charge a fortune. And it would be nice if you can support them because they will get the money. And it's about isomold. So if any of you is interested in finding about isomold, then on the 8th of July from 7:30 for 1 hour and a half. I've got the feeling that it will cost about £4, but I've got no idea. You have to ask. I think I put the details on the description of the event. I haven't actually decided what other subjects we'll carry on with during the July. Now in August, we all are having a month off for our holidays, hopefully productive holidays. But then we'll restart from September. I do promise you will be on live for at least one evening per week with different subjects. We'll alternate because we can cover lots of areas of interest. We'll do a variation, but we'll dedicate 1 month, for example, for baking, 1 month for piping, either oil icing or buttercream. Yeah, we'll just try to just come up with different things and ideas to discuss in our evening meetings. Melinda, you're very welcome, my dear. If piping buttercream is going to be your new passion, then yeah, definitely something to practice on. So ladies, if there are no questions, we'll have to finish here. But if there are any other things to ask, please do ask while I'm here. Sarah, thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for attending. I'm really sorry for last week. Unfortunately, I did say those live sessions, they are only available while they are live. They will not be stored anywhere. Now, probably from September, I'm going to do it slightly different. They will remain available, but just for those who are always taking their time to join me. We'll share a private link and they can access the info even later. Okay, so thank you very much, ladies. It was a pleasure to see you here tonight, even if we were just through kind of an e-connection. So enjoy your evening, and if I don't see you next week onto the isomold session, keep an eye for what's going to happen the week after. Enjoy your evening. Bye bye.